A very good morning, dear children. Today we are going to start with chapter 2, periodic classification of elements. We know that all the substances that are surrounding us in the environment, they are in either of three forms, that is either they are solid or liquid or gas. Okay, but whichever form they are in, we know that they are made up of a basic unit, that is atom. All the substances that surround us, they are made up of atom, and every atom has a central part in which it consists of two main particles. One is positively charged particle called proton, neutral neutron is there. These are the two particles present in the nucleus, and you have negatively charged electrons which keep revolving in specific orbits or shells. Okay, now from this, why am I explaining this is because there are two terms which you have to know so that learning becomes easy in the next coming concepts. Okay, the first concept is that of atomic mass. What is atomic mass? It is nothing but the total number of protons and neutrons in an atom. If you're taking any atom, there are going to be specific number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. You have to add the numbers of the proton and the neutron to get the atomic mass. Okay. Similarly, any atom you take, the total number of electrons, that is the negatively charged particle number, is going to be equal to the positively charged particle number, that is proton number. So any atom has equal number of protons and electrons. If I tell you that an atom has 11 electrons in it, it means that protons are also 11. If I'm telling you that the total number of protons in an atom is 12, then electrons will also be 12. Okay, so this number of protons or electrons is atomic number. So when I say atomic number, I'm talking about the total number of electrons or the total number of protons. Okay, but when I'm talking about atomic mass, I'm talking about the total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. This has to be clear, that is atomic mass is proton and neutron, and atomic number is either proton or electron. Okay, every atom is represented with the help of a symbol. Here He is the symbol for the atom of helium. We know that two atoms come together to form molecule. The molecules which are formed from the atoms can either be elements or they can be compounds. Okay. When do I call it an element? When the atoms which are coming together are exactly the same. That is when you call it to be an element. Like here, hydrogen that is shown is a element. Why? Because it's made up of two hydrogen atoms. When do I call it a compound? When I have the atoms which are forming the molecule, when they are different from one another, that is when I say it is a compound. Like here, water is a compound. How? Because it's formed by hydrogen also and by oxygen also. Both are different from one another. That is why it is a compound. Okay, but how do I understand it? By just looking at it. Or how do I understand whether it's an atom, whether it's an element, whether it's a compound? You can understand it by looking at the molecular formula. Like here, He. He has only one capital letter. It has no number. That is why it is an atom. I repeat, it has one capital letter and there is no number. It is an atom. When do you call it to be an element? When it has one capital letter and one number. It is an element. It has one capital letter and a number. It is an element. And when do you say it is a compound? When you have more than one capital letter, it may or may not have a number. But it should have more than one capital letter. Then it is a compound. Okay, I repeat, atom is going to be what? Which has a capital letter and no number. Element is going to be, it has capital letter also, it has number also. And compound is going to be any substance which has more than one capital letter. It may have a number or it may not have a number. Look at this which I have marked right now. Okay, these are the examples of elements. Here if you see, the example given is for hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and chlorine. Hydrogen is H2. So here if you see, it has a capital letter and it has a number. Now what is that number indicating? The number indicates how many atoms have come together to form that element. Here H2 is written, which means two atoms of hydrogen came together to form the element of hydrogen or the molecule of hydrogen. Okay. Similarly O2, two oxygen atoms, N2, two nitrogen atoms, Cl2, two chlorine atoms. Okay, so you understand it by looking at the capital letters and also the numbers. If you look at the compounds, now here the compounds given are nitrogen oxide. Here if you see, two capital letters are given, which shows that the capital letters is indicating which atoms have come together and how many of them have come. So NO means what? One atom of nitrogen, one atom of oxygen. If you look at H2O, 2 is near the capital letter H. So it means that two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen came together to form the compound of water. You have nitrogen dioxide, which means N has no number next to it, which means it's considered to be 1. So it has one atom of nitrogen and two atoms of oxygen together form the compound nitrogen dioxide. Similarly, carbon dioxide, one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen together combine to form carbon dioxide. Okay, so I hope this is clear. How exactly is element different from compound? Element is formed from the same atoms, compound is formed from different atoms. Now around the year 1800, only 30 elements were known at that time. Okay, and as time passed by, more and more elements were discovered, and today we have a total of 118 elements known to us. Initially, the elements which were known were classified into very simple metals, non-metals and metalloids. However, as more and more elements started coming up and more studies were necessary for these elements, scientists decided to use some other technique for classifying the elements so that studying them can be very, very simple. So, these were the scientists who came forward with their own methods and techniques of classification. There are four which are being described in your chapter. First is Dauber-Reynier, second is Newland, third is Mendeleev, and the fourth is Henry Moseley. We are going to learn all of them, but today we will be learning the first three. Okay, so let's start. Dauber-Reynier was a person who had arranged the elements which were known at his time according to their atomic masses. That means whichever elements he knew, he put them in increasing order of their atomic masses and he studied them according to this particular order. When he studied, he understood or he came to know a specific pattern in these, and according to the pattern, he grouped them into the groups of three. Okay, so what did he do first? He arranged them in increasing order of atomic mass, and second, based on his study, he put them into groups of three. That is why his theory is called Dauber-Reynier triads. Triad stands for three. Okay, and he gave his law that states atomic mass of the middle element was approximately equal to the mean of the atomic masses of the other two elements. What does this mean? Suppose that you're taking three elements A, B and C which have atomic masses 1, 2 and 3 respectively. According to his theory, he says that if you take the first and the third element, if you take the atomic mass of the first and the third element and you're taking mean of it means what? You're going to add it and divide it by 2. I repeat, you're going to add the numbers and you're dividing it by 2. Why am I dividing it by 2? Because 2 elements I have taken. Okay. If I was considering 3 elements, then I would divide it by 3. If I'm taking 4 elements, I would divide it by 4. If I'm taking 5 elements, I would divide it by 5. So mean means how many elements you are considering, you are going to divide it by that number. Here, how many elements are we considering? We are considering 2 elements. the first element and the third element. Because we are considering two elements here, I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to add the numbers, that is 3 plus 1, that is 4, and you're dividing it by 2. Why? Because two elements we are considering, A and C we are considering, that is why divided by 2. So when you divide 4 by 2, you get 2 as your answer. So he said that when you're taking the mean of the first and the third element, the answer that you get is the atomic mass of the second element. Which answer did we get? We got 2, and that is the atomic mass of the middle element. Okay, so atomic mass of the middle element. What is the, which element are we talking about, and what is the atomic mass? We are talking about B, and the atomic mass is 2. Okay, he said this is equal to what? It is equal to the mean of the atomic masses of the other two elements. Which are the other two elements? A and C. And mean of the atomic mass means adding and dividing it by the total number that you're considering. That is adding the number and dividing it by 2. Okay, so this is what Dauber-Reinier had said in his Dauber-Reinier triad. Okay, we look at the actual examples. The first triad we are going to consider is lithium, sodium, potassium. So here the triad he considered was lithium, sodium and potassium. In this, which is the first element and what is the atomic mass? The first element is lithium. The atomic mass is 6.9. Which is a third element and what is its mass? Atomic. The third element is potassium. Atomic mass is 39.1. Now what you're going to do, you have got the first element, you've got the third element. What you have to do is you have to take the mean. Mean means what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 6.9 plus 39.1 and divide it by 2. When you add it, you get the number to be 46, and when you divide it by 2, you get it to be 23. So according to his law, when I'm taking the mean, I'm getting the value to be 23. This, according to his theory, this value is the atomic mass of the middle element. That means 23 should be the atomic mass of sodium. Is it correct? Yes. So sodium has the atomic mass of 23. Okay, so Dauber-Reinier's triad, the first one, that is lithium, sodium, potassium, can be considered to be a triad because this is where his law is getting applied. All right, let's look at another example. The second one is calcium, strontium and barium. So calcium, strontium, barium, from this. Which is my first element? Calcium. What is the atomic mass? 40.1. What is my third element? Barium. What is the atomic mass? 137.3. When I'm taking the mean, I'm supposed to add them. When I add both of them, I get the answer to be 177.4. This 177.4, if I divide it by 2, I get 88.7. Okay, actual mass is 87.6. So 88.7 is what we got. The actual mass is 87.6, which is somewhat close by. Okay, next example, chlorine, bromine, iodine. This is my triad, chlorine, bromine, iodine. In that, the first element is chlorine with an atomic mass of 35.5. The third element is iodine with atomic mass 126.9. If I add it together, I get the total amount to be 162.4, which when I divide by 2, I get 81.2. Okay, so 81.2 is what I'm getting as my value, but the actual atomic mass is 79.9. Okay, now as you look at more and more examples, you will see that somewhere when you're calculating, it is just coming close by to the actual value. It's not accurate. Okay, as you're looking at more and more examples, you will see that this law which Dauber-Reinier gave, it couldn't be applied to all the elements which are known today. And that is why his theory wasn't accepted. Then came Newland. Newland also did the same thing. He arranged the elements according to their increasing atomic masses. He started with hydrogen and he ended with thorium. And based on a study, he told that every eighth element had properties similar to those of the first. This was the law that he gave, which is called as the law of octaves. because we are considering first and eighth. Eighth, that is why octave. Okay. He compared this with the octaves of music. Like according to the Indian music, you have Sare Gama Pada Nisa. Okay, if you go to number it, you will see that the first and the eighth is Sa, which means they are similar to one another. Okay, that's the same thing that he said. If you're arranging the elements in their increasing atomic masses, you will see that the first element and the eighth element, they show similarities in their properties. Okay, this was what he gave. He had grouped them like this. Okay, so he had started with hydrogen. So hydrogen, if I start counting from here, hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. So hydrogen, if I'm counting them, you have hydrogen being the first one and fluorine being the eighth one. So according to his theory, he said that hydrogen and fluorine, they show similarities in properties. Okay. Similarly, if I'm starting with fluorine now, chlorine is going to be the eighth element. So fluorine and chlorine will show similarities in property. Okay. So if I'm starting with lithium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, sodium. So lithium here in this that you've considered, lithium is the first one, sodium is the eighth one. So lithium and sodium will show similarity in property. Okay, so this was the study, or this was the law of octaves which he had given. But it was seen that this law which he gave, it could be applied only till calcium. It couldn't be applied further. Okay, the second problem was cobalt and nickel. Both of them have the same atomic mass. So what he did, he put both of them together in one place. That was the second mistake that he did. Third thing that he did was cobalt and nickel actually have properties similar to iron. But iron was kept along with non-metals like oxygen and sulfur, and cobalt was kept along with halogens like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, etc. So because Newland's octaves wasn't really applicable to all the elements known, his theory also wasn't accepted. Then came Dmitri Mendeleev. He was a person who again did the same thing of arranging the elements according to their increasing order of atomic masses. But how was he different from the other two? After classifying or after arranging the elements in increasing order of atomic masses, he literally studied every single element in detail, where he considered their melting point, he considered their boiling point, their densities, the compounds they are forming with hydrogen, the compounds these elements are forming with oxygen. That is, he studied the hydrides, the oxides. He studied so much each element in detail, and based on that, he gave the periodic law. He said that properties of elements are periodic function of their atomic masses. What does that mean? It means that if you are arranging them according to their atomic mass, you will see that properties of the elements, they are periodically repeating itself. And that is how it led him to make the periodic table. In the periodic table, there were total of 8 vertical columns which were called as groups, and it also had horizontal rows called as periods. Okay, and based on this, based on whatever studies he was doing of the elements, he put those elements into these groups. But the best part about Mendeleev's periodic table was that he did not simply put the elements in the groups or in the specific rows or the columns, but he reviewed every element. He learned all the elements. He saw that the properties which were already known about the elements, whether they were correct or not, that also was checked by him. And when he was doing this study, he understood that beryllium, which was believed to have an atomic mass of 14.09, was wrong. He said that beryllium does not have the atomic mass of 14.09, but it has the atomic mass of 9.4. Okay, so he studied almost every single element in detail, and that is how he put the periodic table. Okay, other than this, there were many other benefits or many other merits were there of Mendeleev's periodic table. He had studied the elements so much in detail that he even could predict the undiscovered elements. He told that there are going to be three elements which are going to be discovered in the future which have the atomic mass of 44, 68, and 72. And he named them temporarily as Eka boron, Eka aluminium, and Eka silicon. He did not only predict that these elements will be discovered in future, but he even predicted their properties in detail. Like, he told that Eka aluminium has the atomic mass of 68. This element was later discovered as being gallium. Okay, and the atomic mass was found to be 69.7, which was very much close to what he predicted. He also predicted the density to be 5.9, and gallium had the density of 5.9. The melting point was predicted to be low. It had 30.2 as a melting point. He told that this is the element which is going to have the formula with chlorine as ECl3 and with oxide as E2O3. Gallium had it as GaCl3 and Ga2O3. And the nature he predicted it to be amphoteric, and gallium actually was amphoteric. Amphoteric means any substance which reacts with both acid and the base to give salt and water. Okay, so all that predictions which he had done came true in the discovered element. So Eka aluminium was called as gallium, Eka boron was called as scandium, and Eka silicon was called as germanium. Now, because of this success, all the people were convinced about the importance of Mendeleev's periodic table, and this method of classification of element was accepted immediately. However, noble gases like helium, neon, they were not discovered at that time. They were discovered during towards the end of the 19th century. And unfortunately, Mendeleev had no place reserved for the noble gases. So what did he do? Mendeleev created the zero group without disturbing the original periodic table, and in this zero group he put all the noble gases. Okay. Now, even though we are talking about a lot of merits of Mendeleev's periodic table, it also had a lot of demerits. Like, for example, the first one, isotopes were discovered long after Mendeleev put the periodic table. What are isotopes? These are those substances which have same chemical property but different atomic mass. Same chemical property, different atomic mass. Same property means what? Obviously, they should come in the same group, correct? But they have different atomic mass, which means that I have to arrange them in the sequence, so I cannot put it in the same group. According to the same chemical property, they should be in the same group, but because they have different atomic mass, they cannot be put in the same group. So there was a confusion as in where exactly will isotopes be fit. That's the first one. The second one was, when you are arranging the atomic masses in increasing order, if they are in order, like for example, I'm taking the atomic masses from 1 to 10, suppose. Okay, so I'm going to arrange them in increasing order as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I'm arranging them, suppose that after 6, directly I have an element which is 8. After 6, I am directly have an element that is 8. So I can predict that 7 is going to be discovered later because it's in order. But the problem with atomic masses is they are never in order. Like here, if you see, magnesium is 24, aluminium is 27.3. So because of this, I cannot actually predict, is there element which is going to be 25, which is to be discovered? Is it going to be 26, which is going to be discovered? Is it 26.5? Is it 26.9? Okay, so because the atomic masses are not in specific order, that is why it was becoming very difficult for him to predict how many will be discovered later between two elements. That was the second problem. The third problem was cobalt and nickel, both of them have the atomic masses the same. That means both of them have 59. So there was an ambiguity, as in it wasn't clear which one are you supposed to put first? Are you supposed to put cobalt first, or are you supposed to put nickel first? Because both of them had the same atomic mass. Okay, that is why there was a problem in the position of cobalt and nickel. The next problem was position of hydrogen. Actually, hydrogen shows properties very much similar to group 7 where halogens are put. Okay, and it also shows similarity with group 1 where alkalis are put. So hydrogen is a substance that shows similarity of both alkali also and halogen also. So where exactly is the correct position? Is it where it's actually placed right now, or is it supposed to be shifted to group 7? Okay, what were the similarities? We'll look at that. If you compare hydrogen with an element which is from the alkali group, that is sodium, you will find that hydrogen forms compound with chlorine as being HCl, and alkali, that is sodium, also forms NaCl. If you see the compounds formed with oxygen, it is H2O, and the compounds of alkali with oxygen is Na2O. If you see the compound that hydrogen forms with sulfur, it is H2S. The compound formed with sulfur along with an alkali is Na2S. So there's a lot of similarity that you see between hydrogen and alkali. Same thing if you look at halogen. If you're comparing hydrogen with halogen chlorine, you will see that hydrogen forms compound with metal as NaH. Chlorine also is forming the same thing, that is NaCl. Okay, if you see how it is forming a compound with non-metals, hydrogen forms a compound with non-metal as CH4. Chlorine also is doing that, it's forming CCl4. Okay, so there were a lot of similarities that were seen between hydrogen and sodium, and hydrogen and halogen. So there was a lot of similarities seen between hydrogen and halogen and alkali. There were a lot of similarities seen, and that is why the actual position of hydrogen wasn't really fixed, as in where it is accurately going to fit in. Is it group 1 or is it group 7? Okay, these were the demerits of Mendeleev's periodic table. So today what we have done is we have completed with Dauber-Reinius triads, Newland law of octaves, and Mendeleev's periodic table. Their classification method had their own advantages and disadvantages. In the next class, we're going to learn about the modern periodic law that was given by Henry Moseley, and it's going to be very interesting. Okay, so I hope whatever was done today was clear. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.